Okay, there's a lot of questions we do not have time to get to. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But we have to get to our speakers' closing statements. Gentlemen, would you, let's see here. Paul, would you come up first?
Oh, I have to come up?
Unless you want to stay there, it's up to you. Usually we have it set up.
All right.
These will be 2-minute closing statements where our speaker will summarize his position and as succinctly as possible. Afterwards, we'll go ahead and dismiss. Thank you.
Forget it. I'm not going to summarize my position in 2 minutes. What I wanted to do was add a couple of comments about quality of life, if I'm looking at the right person. And it would address something that Ben said. So I'm really going to continue the conversation, which I think is the best way to proceed anyway. Ben talked a lot about food, but if anyone who knows much about nutrition knows that we get more and more calories, but that the quality of the food we're eating is very poor. And it actually is destructive of our health. So while there is more longevity, I think it's important to emphasize something that Ben mentioned, which is a lot of the improvement of longevity has to do with public health. And it has to do with the kinds of measures that were the result of collective struggle, which is precisely what communism does. It creates public sewer and water systems which are not a product of capitalism. They're a product of doing something collectively for everybody. I wanted to say something about friendship and capitalism because that's part of the quality of life. Capitalism, I think, destroys families, and I think it destroys marriages. And I think it makes people not cherish other people and view the commitments to other people as being important. When the unemployment rate goes up, the divorce rate goes up. We now live in a jaded culture where people are not even committing to one another anymore, even in the process of raising children. I think what communism is about is creating a social environment where we cherish one another, where we see our commitments to one another as being what makes life good. And I do think a society can promote values such as other people and the goods of friendship and the goods of labor that serves other people. And I think that is the essence of what communism is about.
Two minutes, Dr. Callard.
Thanks. Thank you all again for coming. I have to say, I agree again with a lot of what Paul just said. Part of, I think, what we disagree about is what contribution or what role the government or an economic system like capitalism versus communism can contribute to the best society. That is, I share many of his ideals. I share his ideas about how we ought to relate to one another. I share his ideas about what meaningful work, sort of how important that is in a human life. The question is whether we should be asking those things of economic systems or not. The things that I think we should ask of an economic system, as opposed to all the other parts of human life, are the things that I've already talked about, the material well-being of the people in the society, and derivatively, various freedoms, which I think capitalism has demonstrably promoted historically. But again, capitalism isn't perfect. Winston Churchill said about democracy that it's the worst system except for all the others. That's my view about capitalism. It's the worst system except for all the others. That is, you don't want to turn to any other system once you've looked at how it goes when we do turn to those systems. But that's not to say that it's some kind of shining example on the hill. We have more work to do than I can possibly summarize here, both individually and collectively, to make our society a more just one and a more flourishing one. And I think government will and should play a large role in that story. But for the reasons I've offered tonight, I think we should see capitalism for all of its many imperfections, and they're legion, as nevertheless, for the reasons I was giving earlier, an amazing generator of happiness both in the lives of people here and all around the world. Happiness about what we have materially, happiness in the chances we have to make something of ourselves, and happiness in the freedom to speak and pray and assemble and vote as we choose. Thanks again.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience, and thank you for joining us for the Socratic debate.
We have literature up here for everybody.